The story of Nagi and Erika is a complicated one. The two were switched at birth. Nagi grew up living a modest life as the son of an eatery owner, while Erika was raised in luxury as the daughter of a wealthy hotel magnate. On their 17th birthday, their paths crossed and the truth was revealed, along with the surprising announcement of their arranged engagement. Despite their initial reluctance, the two began living together. In time, Nagi developed a complicated dynamic with Hiro, his classmate and crush, as well as with Sachi, his adopted younger sister. Now, another unexpected situation unfolds as someone from his past has just arrived at the airport. One evening, Hiro suddenly arrives at Erika's house and makes a shocking announcement that she's moving in. She explains that her parents are trying to marry her off to someone she doesn't love, and she has no intention of allowing that to happen. When Nagi asks if she essentially ran away from home, Hiro firmly replies that she's going to war. While Nagi is impressed by her resolve, Erika and Sachi are left slightly stunned by this bold side of Hiro. Seated in the dining area, Hiro elaborates that if she meets her fiancé, it would likely seal the engagement. To avoid that, she's decided to stay elsewhere. Sachi compares her situation to Nagi and Erika's, noting how the two avoid each other despite being engaged themselves. Nagi supports Hiro's decision, saying that choosing her own happiness is the right move. However, Sachi quickly reminds him that the house actually belongs to Erika, meaning she has the final say on whether Hiro can stay. Hiro quietly tells Sachi that her tutoring services aren't free, hinting that allowing her to stay is part of the exchange. Sachi reluctantly agrees out loud, but mentally signals Erika to refuse the arrangement. Unfortunately for her, Erika doesn't pick up on the hint and happily agrees to let Hiro live with them. With the decision made, Sachi raises a practical concern about their room assignments. The house only has 2 bedrooms. Currently, she and Erika share one room, while Nagi has a room to himself. Naturally, Nagi says it would be inappropriate for him to share a room with Hiro. However, Hiro responds that she doesn't mind. After all, they've already shared a room once before at an inn. Erika adds that Nagi's room has a loft which could work well. Nagi momentarily drifts into a daze at the thought of getting a great view of Hiro every day, before Sachi snaps him back to reality, reminding everyone that all 3 of them are engaged and such arrangements are not proper. Sachi then volunteers to take the loft and keep Nagi out of trouble by locking him in the loft. But Erika offers another solution: she could share a room with Nagi instead, since the original arrangement was for the 2 of them to live together. Things only changed when Sachi moved in. However, Erika quickly reminds him of all the inappropriate incidents that occurred during their cohabitation, most of which, according to Nagi, were actually caused by Erika herself. Trying to come up with a solution, Nagi suggests that the 3 girls should share a room while he keeps his own. He considers it a brilliant plan, but all 3 girls stare at him in silence. Moments later, his genius idea backfires completely as he finds himself in the storage room. Hiro ends up taking his room in the meantime. Still, Nagi tells himself it's fine since it's only temporary. Besides, the thought of Hiro sleeping in his bed is enough to keep his spirits up. He even begins to entertain the idea that Hiro might see him as a romantic option, especially since she's so adamantly against her arranged engagement. But before he can spiral too far into his daydreams, Erika stops by his new room for a visit. Upon entering, Erika opens up about Hiro's sudden move into their home. She believes that living together might expose some of their less appealing sides to one another. Nagi, however, confidently disagrees. Erika then reveals that she used to rebel against her parents too, but in recent years they've allowed her more freedom. In fact, her biological parents are fine with her not marrying Nagi. Still, she wants to make all of her parents happy, and that may mean going through with the engagement. Nagi agrees that staying on good terms with family is important, but argues that neither of them should have to sacrifice their own happiness just to please their parents. The comment hits Erika harder than he expects. She abruptly leaves the room and slams the door behind her. Left alone, Nagi reflects on their conversation and begins to wonder what kind of marriage could truly make everyone happy. Elsewhere in the house, Hiro finishes her bath and takes a good look around, only to realize just how messy everything is. The next morning, Nagi wakes up to the surprising sight of Hiro in an apron, tidying up and preparing breakfast. Nagi tries to stop her, but Hiro insists it's the least she can do since she's freeloading. Nagi waits eagerly in the living room to try her cooking, but is shocked when she pulls out a dried bonito. The noise wakes Sachi and Erika, who immediately scold Nagi upon seeing Hiro doing chores. He pulls them aside for a quick meeting and suggests they divide the housework. However, Sachi and Erika are against it and propose that whoever feels like cleaning should do it. Nagi quickly points out the flaw will be that Hiro will end up doing everything on her own. When Nagi tries to point out the obvious chores around the house, both Sachi and Erika dodge the topic, claiming they've been busy. Frustrated by their excuses, Nagi punches a hole in the wall to show how serious he is about cleaning. He then drafts a chore list for everyone to follow. Nagi checks on Hiro, who's still working on shaving bonito flakes. Before he can offer help, Sachi runs in to report that the washing machine has exploded. Upon checking, Nagi quickly scolds her for overloading it and tells her to stop being lazy. Next, Erika calls him over to point out a thick layer of dust gathered on a nearby table. She scolds him for letting it accumulate, then walks away without any intention of cleaning it herself. Nagi returns to the kitchen to find Hiro still struggling with the bonito flakes despite the fact that it's already lunchtime. By sunset, no one in the house has eaten. Hiro continues trying to perfect the bonito flakes, while everyone else is too hungry to move. Seeing the situation, Nagi decides to take matters into his own hands. He cooks a simple meal he calls the stranger's bowl, a nod to how everyone in the house is essentially unrelated yet living under one roof. As the girls begin eating and praise the meal, Nagi explains that his dish was inspired by his relationship with each of them. While talking, thick tears begin streaming down his face, surprising everyone, especially Nagi, who didn't realize he was crying. Later that night, Nagi sulks in his new room, embarrassed by his sudden emotional outburst. He tries to distract himself by studying, only to be interrupted by Erika, who orders him to wash the dishes. Nagi scolds her for not doing them herself and laments his current situation, especially since the storage room he now lives in needs to remain open for everyone's use. As Erika waters the plants nearby, she casually tells Nagi that she thought his tears earlier were tears of happiness. Surprised by this interpretation, Nagi wonders aloud if Erika ever cries from happiness too. Just then, the lights suddenly go out, catching them off guard. Hiro arrives and announces that tonight is horror night. Everyone gathers in the living room, where Hiro asks if they heard of Kakari-san. Sachi and Nagi are vaguely familiar with it and agree to participate. Hiro begins the chant, and when their fingers move to yes, Erika is stunned that it's actually working. Hiro then asks the board if Erika is barefaced in her photos. To Erika's surprise and horror, the yen coin moves to yes. Erika reluctantly confirms that most of her photos are in fact barefaced. Nagi decides to use the board to ask who's been eating his pudding. He's confident Sachi is the culprit and suspects she's the one moving the coin. But to his surprise, the board spells out Erika, and Erika confirms it, much to his shock. Nagi starts to panic, wondering if an actual spirit is in the room with them. Sachi then asks the board who her first kiss was, which surprises everyone. They didn't know she had already kissed someone. The board spells out Nat, and Nagi starts panicking, thinking it's about to reveal him. But to his relief, the board spells out their mother's name instead. Sachi explains that their mom tends to get overly affectionate when drunk. She then notices that Hiro looks uncomfortable, though Hiro quickly denies it, claiming that the heat is just getting to her. Getting more into the spirit of the evening, Erika changes into a fox cosplay to fit the spooky theme. Hiro decides to ask the board who Nagi's first love was. The board spells out I, and everyone is shocked that it's not Hiro. Sachi confirms that Nagi used to play with a girl named Ai when they were kids. At first, even Nagi is confused, until he remembers Ai, his childhood friend and first crush. He starts to panic again, convinced the spirit in the board might be real. Suddenly, the lights go out, adding to the eerie atmosphere. When Nagi looks around, he realizes the girls have all vanished. In reality, this is part of Hiro's plan, a test to see which name Nagi will call out first in panic. Sachi, now uneasy, asks why Hiro is being so competitive. Hiro playfully suggests that Nagi will definitely call out Erika's name. But to their disappointment, when Nagi finally yells, it's neither of their names. Instead, he simply shouts his location and asks for help. The lights come back on and the girls reappear. Nagi is visibly relieved, especially over Sachi's safety, which surprises everyone. A few days later, Hiro and Erika head out for grocery shopping, leaving Nagi home alone. He also notes that Sachi will be gone since she has summer school. He takes the opportunity to strip down and dive into the pool. To his horror, Sachi returns home early, still in her school uniform. Nagi hides his nakedness underwater while Sachi sits nearby to talk. Eventually, she notices he's completely naked. After getting dressed, Nagi joins her again and asks why she's home from summer school so early. As they chat, a cat suddenly cuddles up to Sachi, and Nagi realizes she's been secretly feeding it. Sachi grabs him by the collar and forces him to swear not to tell anyone. He agrees and she feeds the cat, who she's named Gloomy, but Gloomy immediately jumps down and walks away to meet a female cat. This shocks Sachi, as she always thought Gloomy was alone, hence the name she had given him. Watching him leave with his new companion makes her unexpectedly sad. Sachi then asks Nagi what's going to happen once he marries Erika. She also tells him he should stop chasing Hiro and just settle down with Erika instead. Nagi avoids answering and turns the question around, reminding her how she used to talk about meeting her prince when they were younger. Embarrassed, Sachi says that one day she will fall in love and maybe even get married. This surprises Nagi, but he then asks her to stop meddling in his love life if she doesn't want him meddling in hers. In response, Sachi sprays him with water and declares that she's not getting married, so he's not allowed to either. She storms toward the house, intending to ignore him for the rest of the day, but before she can go inside, they hear Erika's voice calling out urgently. Erika rushes into the yard, breathless, and reveals that Hiro has been abducted. Meanwhile, elsewhere in town in front of Nagi's family eatery, Ai wanders near the entrance. As the aroma of food drifts from inside, she smiles to herself. It's been 10 years since she last saw Nagi, and she's looking forward to meeting him again. Erika recounts what happened while they were out in town. Apparently, during their grocery run, Hiro was approached by a group of intimidating men and, without much explanation, chose to follow them into a waiting car. Erika had tried to intervene, even attempting to negotiate with them, but Hiro simply thanked her for her hospitality and insisted she had to go. As the car drove away, Erika caught a glimpse of Hiro's mother inside. Hearing the story, both Nagi and Sachi assume that Hiro's parents simply came to take her home. Still, her absence leaves the group feeling strangely empty. Sachi then remembers the reason Hiro ran away in the first place was because she had wanted to get away from her fiancé. Suddenly, Nagi stands up, declaring that it's time to turn things around. Erika and Sachi are confused, with Erika even assuming that he's giving up and letting Hiro marry a stranger. But Nagi firmly states that he has no intention of letting that happen as he heads to the door. Erika stops him and asks if he's sure about interfering with Hiro's fate. Nagi doesn't hesitate, and he says that if it's for Hiro, then there's no reason not to act. He soon finds himself standing in front of Hiro's family mansion. The imposing size and elegance of the building shake his confidence. For a moment, he doubts his reasons for coming, but he quickly collects himself, thinking it could all be resolved with a simple, heartfelt conversation. He imagines himself boldly but politely declaring to Hiro's mother that he's in love with her daughter and that the wedding must be called off. In his fantasy, the mother understands, and Hiro gazes at him with admiration. With a satisfied and determined smile, he proceeds to the front door. However, upon sliding it open, he finds himself inside what looks like a small shop. He opens another door. This time, it's a diner. Wandering through the compound in confusion, Nagi begins to think he's at the wrong address. But just then, he spots a flash of purple. It's Hiro, walking with her mother and two unfamiliar people. Nagi calls out to her. Their eyes meet briefly, but her mother sternly nudges her forward, and Hiro breaks eye contact and follows her mother. Not willing to give up, Nagi rushes forward, grabs Hiro's hand, and pulls her away to escape. As they run, a memory comes to mind back when Nagi ranked second in exams for the first time. He had always been first until Hiro appeared. When he first saw her in high school, he was surprised that Hiro was a girl. From then on, he silently vowed to beat her in midterms, but once again, she came out on top. Hearing how admired she was by other students, Nagi could only sulk over his unexpected defeat. One evening, Sachi had asked Nagi to play with her, but he refused. He was determined to study. Sachi complained that ever since he entered high school, all he ever did was study. When Nagi ignored her, she insulted him and stormed out of his room. He wasn't bothered. Instead, he poured even more hours into his review materials. During finals, he placed second once again. Upon checking the results, he realized that Hiro had secured first place by correctly answering a trick question. As he observed her more, he noticed that Hiro didn't have many friends. She was quiet, often kept to herself, and in some ways reminded him of himself. He brought this up with Sachi, but she quickly dismissed the comparison. According to her, Hiro was nothing like him, as she was probably someone who didn't even view Nagi as a rival. But her words didn't shake his resolve. Once again, Nagi promised himself that he would be Hiro in the next exam. On the day of the next ranking exams, Nagi felt ready for the exam, but just as he was heading to his classroom, he was hit with a sharp pain in his stomach. In a panic, he rushed to the nurse's office and realized that his stomach pain was probably due to the leftover tonkatsu he had eaten. Lying on the bed, he could only feel dread, knowing he'd miss his chance to rank first if he did not take the exam on the intended day. He couldn't understand why Hiro kept beating him. Then he heard movement from the bed next to his. Peeking through the curtain, he saw Hiro arguing with the nurse, insisting that she had to return to class despite having a high fever. At that moment, it all made sense. Hiro wasn't just smart, she was also relentless. A few days later, Nagi approached her. With a gentle smile, he admitted that he admired her for putting in so much effort to stay on top. He also let it slip that he knew she had taken the last exam while sick. An unusual expression crossed Hiro's face, but it vanished in an instant. With a cold glare, she demanded that Nagi never speak to her again. The next day, Nagi considered apologizing, feeling guilty for making Hiro uncomfortable. He then spots a crowd of students gathered around Hiro, who was sporting a new haircut and walking with a radiance that wasn't there before. At that moment, Nagi realized he was starting to fall for her. Meanwhile, in the present day, Sachi decides to visit home. As she nears the house, someone suddenly calls her name. Thinking it's a ghost, she spins around, only to find Ai standing there, smiling and waiting for her. Elsewhere, Nagi and Hiro wait for the bus, wondering how far they can go before someone catches up to them. Hiro comments on how little money they have between them. Nagi immediately apologizes for not thinking the plan through, but decides he doesn't regret it. When Hiro mentions she's hungry, he offers her a gentle smile. Back at the Umino family diner, Sachi's parents warmly welcome Ai, as it's been years since they last saw her. Noticing her stylish outfit, they comment on how different she looks now. Ai admits that her outfit is actually for work, though she doesn't go into detail about her job. Nami and Yohei bring out a bowl of katsuden, Ai's favorite dish back when she used to visit. When they ask about her parents, Ai shares that her family has since split up. Her father moved to Singapore, her mother to France, and she decided to return to Japan. Relieved it's not because of a divorce, Nami jokingly compares it to a band breaking up. When Ai brings up Nagi, Sachi grows tense, but Nami eagerly starts sharing stories about Nagi's recent misadventures. Meanwhile, Nagi buys a burger meal for him and Hiro. As he picks at the fries, he silently worries about how they're going to afford the rest of their trip. For a brief moment, he even considers asking Erika for help, but quickly brushes that idea aside. Noticing that Nagi isn't eating much, Hiro offers him half of her burger. Nagi hesitates, then realizes this counts as an indirect kiss. Without missing a beat, he devours the burger and dramatically slurps from their shared drink like it's a romantic milestone. Watching him eat, Hiro smiles and admits she had been secretly hoping he'd come rescue her again. Nagi brings up their first meeting and asks if he was the reason she started to change. Hiro smiles back and asks if he's aware of why she needs to stay on top of their grade. She reveals that her real motivation has always been to avoid her arranged marriage. Her family's shrine is rich in tradition, and ever since she was a child, her parents plan to marry her off to someone deemed worthy to inherit it. It's a future she has always hated. So she decided that if she could prove herself by excelling in school, then it might be able to convince her family that she can take over the shrine herself. And then, everything started to change when Nagi showed up. She admits that she always aimed to be number one, not just to lose her fiancé, but also to keep people at a distance. As long as she stayed on top, people wouldn't try to get close to someone already engaged. Hiro explains that if people got too close, it would only hurt more when the time came to say goodbye. If her parents pushed through with the engagement, she didn't want to leave anyone behind. She continues, saying that the reason she pushed herself so hard was to repel people like Nagi. She didn't want him to stay interested, so she tried to outshine everyone in every possible way. Nagi feels a pit form in his stomach at Hiro's reason. He was hoping that she had changed to impress him. Oblivious to his reaction, Hiro continues. Ironically, by striving so hard to keep people out, she had only drawn more people in, and to her surprise, she liked it. She liked having friends, she liked the attention, and most of all, she liked that Nagi kept approaching her. Before the moment can become too heartfelt, Erika suddenly appears and loudly calls them over. Back at the Umino family diner, Nagi's parents finish explaining to Ai how Nagi was switched at birth and is now living with his fiancé. Following Erika, Nagi and Hiro find themselves at the family shrine, standing before Hiro's mother, Asami. Erika introduces Nagi as her fiancé and forces him into a deep bow as they apologize for kidnapping Hiro. Erika rattles off Nagi's bad habits while he shrinks under her words, only for Asami to join in, scolding him for not thinking ahead. She then turns her scolding toward Hiro for bringing a betrothed couple into the inn. Erika defends her, explaining that their engagement is secret to most students, so Hiro didn't know. She also opens up about her own resistance to the arrangement, how it was never her idea, and how she harbored resentment toward her father and her supposed fiancé. She confesses that at first she shut everyone out thinking that was resistance, but later realized she was only running away. Asami listens and finally speaks. She says that Hiro is her only daughter and the next in line to take care of the shrine. Of course, she's strict because she has to be, but she also admits she didn't realize just how unhappy Hiro was. Her tone softens as she says they need to talk more and understand each other better. She then bows to both Erika and Nagi, apologizing for dragging them into their family matters. Afterward, Hiro thanks Erika sincerely. She says Erika's words helped her realize how wrong her approach had been. She gives Erika a tight hug and invites her to go shopping together sometime to make up for the interrupted trip. Watching them hug, Nagi feels awkward, until Hiro also thanks him and invites him along. Nagi tries to brush it off, saying he only made things worse. On the way home, Nagi seems unusually quiet. Erika finally asks what's wrong, and he admits he feels embarrassed. He tried to elope with Hiro, only for Erika, his actual fiancé, to swoop in and fix everything before they could make a terrible mistake. Erika teases him, but her words only make him sulk more. So to cheer him up, she buys him a drink and tells him he actually did okay today. He takes a sip, surprised by the warmth of the soup. Erika downs a cold cola and casually says that soup is labeled as relaxing, which is clearly what he needs. Nagi quietly admits something else. He's come to realize how much he relies on Erika. She grins proudly and declares that it just proves her place in his life is irreplaceable. Watching her smug expression, Nagi can't help but think she's kind of cute. The next day, Ai asks Sachi if she can visit Nagi's new home. She claims it's just to say hi, but Sachi is curious, especially since she remembers how Nagi confessed to Ai back in elementary school. She laughs at the memory, saying it was funny how serious he was for a kid. But Ai responds more seriously. She says she actually wants to talk to Nagi about that. Sachi brings her to Erika's house, surprising both Erika and Nagi. Without wasting time, Ai says she's here to finally give Nagi an answer to the confession he made 7 years ago. Flustered, Nagi tries to brush it off, insisting she doesn't have to bring up something so old. But Ai simply smiles and says that she came back to marry him. The room falls silent. Everyone, including Nagi, stares in stunned disbelief as Ai smiles at him. After Ai's bold declaration, Nagi feels like she's going overboard, as marriage was the last thing on his mind back when he confessed as a child. Ai doesn't linger and simply bids them farewell, explaining that she only came to inform them of her intentions before taking her leave. Everyone is left confused, but Nagi reflects on how little Ai has changed since their childhood. Wanting to respond properly, he decides to follow her. He catches up and thanks her for remembering to reply, but apologizes for having to turn her down. He explains that he's in love with someone else and is already dealing with multiple complicated relationships. To his surprise, Ai smiles and accepts his answer easily. Nagi realizes that Ai's understanding nature is exactly what drew him to her all those years ago. Before he can say anything more, Ai casually announces that she'll be shifting gears and begins walking home. After a few steps, she turns around and asks Nagi to walk her home. Nagi senses that she might want them to go back to being childhood friends, so he agrees. Ai ends up walking ahead, too shy to walk beside him, leaving Nagi confused. As they continue, Ai suddenly requests that they stare into each other's eyes, but she's the first to break eye contact, flustered by her racing heartbeat, which only adds to Nagi's confusion. Before they part ways, Ai makes one final request to visit the old snack shop they used to frequent. Nagi's face lights up at the memory and he eagerly agrees. As they walk toward the shop, Ai admits that it feels like they're on a date now, although Nagi points out that it was her idea to go. When they arrive, however, they find a regular convenience store where the old shop used to stand. Instead of being disappointed, Ai starts reminiscing about a Super Bowl toy she had desperately wanted as a child. She used to visit the shop every day, spending all her allowance trying to win it. She swore to return once she had enough money, determined to take it home. Unfortunately, by the time she came back, the toy had already been claimed. She remembers sitting outside the store crying from frustration. Nagi, not knowing what to do at the time, had panicked and desperately tried to calm her down. Nagi smiles fondly at the memory, but Ai explains that her story had a deeper meaning. Standing tall and looking at him, she declares that she's no longer the same girl from their childhood and will now win Nagi's heart. Realizing what she meant by changing gears, Nagi begins to grow nervous. Later, he returns to the family diner, where Yohei serves him a bowl of tonkatsu. Nagi doesn't touch the food, prompting Yohei to ask about his meeting with Ai. Without much hesitation, Nagi admits that Ai wants to marry him. Yohei reacts instantly. He snatches away the bowl and flips the table, then punches Nagi, knocking him to the floor. Furious, Yohei calls him scum for continuing to attract girls despite already being engaged. Nagi tries to explain, but Yohei challenges him to a fight instead. He easily blocks Nagi's punch, mocking him for spending all of his time studying instead of building strength. Nagi attempts to land more hits, but only ends up taking another punch himself. Before things escalate further, Nami walks in and catches them fighting in the middle of their eatery. Outraged, she knocks both of them over the head and orders them to clean up the mess. Neither of them argues. While they're cleaning, Nami scolds Nagi for being the kind of guy who makes girls cry. Her words hit him hard. Nagi realizes that he needs to be honest and set things straight with Ai. But as he steps out of the diner, he comes to a more daunting realization. He doesn't just owe the truth to one girl, but 4. The weight of it all briefly gives way to a ridiculous swell of pride at having 4 girls interested in him. At that moment, Yohei appears by the door and offers a half-hearted apology for overreacting. Nagi just gives him a deadpan look and reminds him that he always does this. Eventually, Nagi returns to Erika's apartment. She immediately confronts him, saying they need to talk. Without warning, she punches him and accuses him of being a fraud for being in love with Hiro while supposedly engaged to Ai. She calls it insulting and scolds him for his carelessness. But when Nagi doesn't react, her anger only grows. She eventually apologizes for hitting him, and they settle down to fold laundry together. As Nagi explains everything, Erika seems more confused than ever. He realizes Erika has no experience with falling in love and starts teasing her about it. She then admits her own experience and tentatively asks Nagi what love feels like. Nagi stares at Erika, baffled by her question, especially since they're engaged. Still, he answers, telling her to think about the things that make her happy. As Erika begins listing them, Nagi explains that love brings out a similar kind of joy, only it's multiplied by 100. Though touched by his words, Erika masks her reaction with indifference and teases him for using such a cheesy analogy. Nagi defends himself, saying he was just trying to put it in terms she'd understand. Then, noticing her messy folding, he points out that she doesn't even know how to fold towels properly. Erika retorts that towels are folded that way in hotels, but then suddenly gets an idea. She dashes outside, and soon she and Nagi are lighting sparklers in the yard. Erika shares that they originally bought the fireworks when Hiro came over in hopes of lighting them someday. Nagi feels a pang of regret, realizing he missed the chance to see Hiro holding sparklers. As they watch the lights flicker, Erika admits she finds Nagi odd, especially since Hiro and Ai have such opposite personalities and he's fallen for both. His love for Ai developed from spending time together as children and sharing fun memories. On the other hand, his feelings for Hiro were born from their constant rivalry. Hearing this, Erika concludes that Nagi probably just falls for anyone who talks to him. He tries to argue, but halfway through his denial, he realizes there might be some truth to it. Embarrassed, he changes the subject by lighting more fireworks. Erika thinks more deeply about his behavior. If Nagi can fall for both Hiro and Ai, people who are nothing alike, then maybe it's possible he could fall for her too if they keep spending time together. Nagi is about to dismiss the thought but stops mid-sentence. Erika chooses not to push the topic further and instead tells him to clean up since their little fireworks show is over. Unbeknownst to both of them, Sachi has been listening nearby. Hearing their conversation, she begins to wonder if there's a chance Nagi could fall for her as well. Later that night, Erika takes a bath, her thoughts wandering to the kind of happiness love brings. She imagines what it would be like to see her older brother again, but instead of her brother's face, Nagi's image appears in her mind, leaving her startled. She realizes that she genuinely enjoys talking to Nagi and starts to wonder if that feeling could be what love is. The next day, while munching on snacks, Erika tries to convince herself that her feelings aren't romantic. At that moment, Sachi walks in and asks if she can borrow some of Erika's clothes. Sachi excuses herself and moves to leave the house. Nagi and Erika, curious about where she's going, ask her directly. Without hesitation, she tells them she's heading out on a date. At first, they show no reaction, but the moment she steps out the door, it finally sinks in that Sachi is meeting up with a guy. Out in town, Sachi meets her male classmate, and the two greet each other with visible excitement. Meanwhile, Nagi and Erika are spying on them from a distance, both insisting they're only doing this out of concern since they are her older siblings. Sachi briefly hears something and turns around, but not seeing anything suspicious, she decides to continue with the date. Behind a corner, Nagi and Erika are squished together, trying to stay hidden. Erika grows flustered by their close proximity and tries to complain, but Nagi quickly scolds her, warning that Sachi might hear them. Erika can't help but recall Nagi's earlier explanation about love, and a warm, fluttering feeling begins to rise in her chest just from being near him. Thinking quickly, Erika drags Nagi into a nearby shop, where they re-emerge dressed in bright, flashy outfits. Nagi questions whether this will actually help since the clothes seem more likely to attract attention than deflect it. Erika argues that the disguise works well enough and Sachi probably won't recognize them, and at least now they won't need to squeeze into tight hiding spots. As long as they blend in with the crowd, they'll be fine. They continue tailing Sachi. Her classmate buys her a popular drink, which she happily accepts. Nagi, however, doesn't seem pleased. Erika watches him amused and jokes that maybe the boy is Sachi's type. She then teasingly suggests that Nagi might be a little too attached to his sister. Eventually, the sun sets, and the two stop at a quiet park. The atmosphere turns soft and romantic, and Erika assumes something might happen between them. But Nagi comments that it actually looks more like a rejection. Sure enough, the classmate simply bids Sachi farewell and walks off. Erika is surprised by how anticlimactic it is. Then suddenly, Sachi turns in their direction, her eyes narrowing. She calls them out immediately. Erika and Nagi scramble to come up with excuses, but Sachi flatly tells them that she had noticed them tailing her all day. Nagi gets defensive, saying he was only worried since middle schoolers aren't supposed to be wandering around at night. He adds that Sachi shouldn't even be thinking about dating with entrance exams coming up. Sachi chimes in, explaining that the whole point of the date was because the boy is at the top of their class and could help her study. Unconvinced, Nagi walks up to her and scolds her for not taking her situation seriously. Sachi gives him a teasing look and asks if he's jealous. Nagi quickly denies it, reminding her that she's his sister. Without another word, Sachi turns and announces she's heading home. Left behind at the park, Nagi starts to question whether the situation is bothering him more than he originally thought. Lost in thought on the way home, he crosses the street without noticing the red light. A bike screeches to a stop just in time, but the sudden encounter still knocks Nagi off his feet. The writer gets ready to scold him but stops upon realizing it's Hiro. They decide to catch up at a karaoke place. After Hiro finishes her song, Nagi claps in amazement. They talk, and Hiro shares that she agreed to meet her fiancé, though the meeting has been postponed. She says she wants to at least give it a try, hoping the man turns out to be decent. She then asks Nagi what he's been up to lately. Nagi tells her about Sachi's so-called boyfriend. Hiro says it sounds like Sachi might be testing him, and his uncertainty about his feelings only proves that it's affecting him more than he admits. Normally, people would be happy for their siblings. Then Hiro asks if he finds Sachi attractive and hands him the microphone. Nagi hesitates, but instead of answering, he suddenly announces that he has to go home to prepare dinner and leaves. As he walks off, Hiro watches him fondly, quietly admitting to herself that she finds him cute. When Nagi gets home, he's ready to head to bed, but overhears Sachi and Erika chatting in their room. He barges in and scolds Sachi for moving too fast with her boyfriend. Erika explains they were only talking about how close Sachi had gotten to her dogs. Satisfied with Nagi's reaction, Sachi reveals she had lied. She actually turned the boy down. Embarrassed, Nagi returns to his room, forgetting to prepare dinner. Meanwhile, Sachi is giddy, realizing just how much Nagi cares for her. One morning, Erika wakes up and realizes it's already almost noon. As she groggily starts to get ready, she's startled to find Ai sitting silently by her bedside. Still half asleep, Erika goes through her usual routine, only to find Ai following her every step, even helping her get dressed and fixing her hair. By the time Ai casually comments on how Erika prefers her eggs cooked, Erika finally snaps. Frustrated, Erika demands to know why Ai is in her home. Sachi and Nagi, who have been observing them, are just as confused. Ai calmly explains that she has every intention of marrying Nagi. As his childhood friend, she refuses to let him get engaged to someone she doesn't approve of. That's why she came to challenge Erika. If Erika loses, she must break off the engagement. Nagi tries to clarify that the engagement was something their parents arranged, but before he can finish, Erika cuts in and accepts the challenge. Nagi is stunned, thinking this is Erika's way of confessing her feelings for him. Erika quickly denies it, saying she just wants Ai out of the house and can't stand being followed around all day. Erika leads them to a game center where she declares that they will be playing a game of darts. Ai confidently agrees and steps up to the line, striking a baseball batter's stance before throwing. Nagi and Sachi look on, baffled by the amount of power and intensity she's putting into such a simple game. When Erika asks about her job, Ai says she sings online. Erika is genuinely impressed and shares that she earns money by posting photos. Before Ai throws again, Erika casually asks if she'll be transferring to their school for the summer. Ai lands another bullseye and replies that she won't as she's already finished college. Sachi and Nagi, still munching on popcorn, recall that Ai once mentioned attending a prestigious school overseas. Just as Ai lines up her third throw, Erika asks what she likes about Nagi that makes her want to marry him. The question throws Ai off and her dart misses the target entirely. Without answering, Ai gestures for Erika to take her turn. Erika steps up, secures her stance, and prepares to throw until Ai suddenly asks whether she ever intends to marry Nagi. Erika falters and misses, then confidently replies that she'll choose her own husband when the time comes. As she steadies herself for the next dart, Ai drops another question, whether Erika and Nagi have ever been physically intimate. The question makes Erika choke mid-throw. Red-faced, Erika denies anything intimate ever happened, but admits she might have seen some things. Ai calmly responds that she, too, has seen certain parts of Nagi. Nagi now blushing furiously, horrified that they're having this conversation in public. Before Erika can throw her final dart, Ai suddenly poses one more question, whether Erika loves Nagi or if she hates him. Erika pauses, then answers that she feels neither love nor hate toward him. As she finally releases the dart, Ai adds that if the dart hits the target, it will count as confirmation that Erika actually does love Nagi. But to everyone's surprise, Erika lands a perfect shot, striking the center of the target. Before the group can process what just happened, Ai abruptly shifts focus. She declares that her greatest rival for Nagi's love isn't Erika, but Sachi. Nagi, already overwhelmed, grows even more confused. Without waiting for a response, she walks away. Nagi, still processing everything, rushes after her. Erika wonders why Sachi is suddenly being dragged into the situation. Meanwhile, Nagi catches up with Ai and confronts her about everything. When Ai casually claims that Nagi is simply possessed by fate, he takes offense, but as he reflects, memories of all the complicated situations he's had with the girls come flooding back. Ai then offers a metaphor describing Nagi's situation as like drowning in a swamp he's already neck deep, and the three girls involved are in the same swamp with him. They're all flailing, trying to help but only making things worse. What they don't realize is that if they all just stood up, they'd be able to escape it easily. Nagi admits that if escaping had been that easy, he would have done it already. Ai gently tells him it's time to move forward and enter the next stage of his life by marrying her. She points out that they're nearly of legal age and that he could find happiness with her, especially since she truly loves him. Nagi is taken aback by the direct confession. Blushing, he thanks her and tries to respond, but before he can say anything more, Ai turns and walks away. He rushes after her, but suddenly loses feeling in his foot and collapses. His heart pounds in his chest as he watches her retreating figure. It dawns on him that it's the first time someone has ever confessed their love to him. The next day, Nagi lies in the yard beside the pool, trying to process his feelings. Erika and Sachi interrupt his thoughts, inviting him inside to eat homemade summon. Nagi complains that Erika forgot to untie the noodle bundles before boiling them. The girls just tease him, joking that he needed to be bedridden because I confessed to him. As he takes a bite, Nagi admits he didn't know how to react since it was his first confession after all. The girls begin to share how they usually handle confessions, but Nagi argues that Ai's confession is different. It was honest and something she held on to for 7 years. Erika and Sachi exchange concerned glances, then quickly try to think of excuses to leave the table. Left alone, Nagi reflects on how strange a confession can make someone feel. He recalls confessing to Hiro before and starts to wonder if she feels the same way he does now. The thought lingers, and before long, Nagi finds himself wondering what Hiro would look like if he told her someone had confessed to him. The idea of seeing her jealous suddenly becomes too tempting, and Nagi convinces himself that he's only going to see her to put her at ease. At the shrine, Hiro is busy with preparations where she spots Nagi arriving, unusually confident. She asks him to step aside since he's leaning on some equipment, and he quickly moves out of the way. He eventually finds another place to sit as Hiro continues working, explaining that the shrine will be hosting a festival soon. But as she talks, Nagi doesn't really absorb any of it, as his thoughts are elsewhere. Sensing this, Hiro finally asks why he's really there. Nagi tries to play it cool, delivering his story with forced nonchalance. But Hiro remains distracted by her tasks, and he struggles to get the story out clearly. Eventually, they move to a quieter location, a kitchen, where Hiro starts slicing watermelon. Nagi finishes telling the story, even adding that his heart skipped a beat when I confessed, hoping Hiro might react in the way he imagined. But Hiro keeps slicing, only commenting that she caught the gist of what he said. When the knife slams sharply against the chopping board, Nagi panics, thinking he may have pushed too far. He quickly tries to backpedal, saying that he still only has feelings for her, and that he shared the story just to be honest. Hiro calmly finishes cutting the watermelon and takes a juicy bite, letting the juice trail down her lips and chin. The sight makes Nagi visibly nervous. She then shows him a flyer inviting him, Erika, Sachi, and I to the festival tomorrow. The next day, Sachi and Erika arrive at the shrine dressed in colorful kimonos, exploring the festival with Nagi. But before he can worry further, Ai appears, wearing a unique, eye-catching kimono. She explains that she heard about the festival and wanted to visit. Ai moves to stand beside Nagi, casually claiming that attending the festival with him makes it all the more special. Before Nagi can respond, they spot Hiro ahead of them. She offers a polite but distant smile when she notices how close Ai is standing next to Nagi. Nagi introduces the two girls, and while Ai and Hiro greet each other with the usual formalities, the tone between them is noticeably cold. Trying to ease the atmosphere, Erika suggests they all walk around together, but Hiro declines the offer, explaining that she still has shrine duties to attend to. Before she walks off, Hiro casually invites Ai to join the cosplay competition. Ai, without hesitation, agrees to participate, where the winner will receive 2 amusement park tickets. To make matters worse, Hiro also announces that Nagi will be one of this year's judges, sending him into a quiet panic. The thought of judging a competition between all the girls he's close to feels like a trap, but the girls, Erika, Sachi, Hiro, and now Ai, are already hyped and motivated to impress him with their performances. As night falls, the cosplay competition officially begins. Takahashi and Yonzawa act as MCs, enthusiastically introducing the judges, Hiro's mother, Shiun, and a very nervous Nagi. With the spotlight now on him, Nagi starts to feel the full pressure of his position. He begins to wonder if Hiro actually wants to win, and what this could mean for his relationships with the others. The first contestant is Erika. A giant bunny mascot waddles onto the stage and waves at the audience. Nagi quickly realizes it's Erika inside the suit. Apparently, Hiro had convinced her that she had a better chance at winning if she wore a bunny outfit. Erika agreed but misunderstood, opting for a full mascot suit instead of a stylish bunny cosplay. The crowd is completely unamused and Nagi facepalms, questioning what on earth Erika was thinking. Next up is Sachi, who appears in her middle school uniform. She originally wanted to dress as a nurse like Hiro had suggested, but couldn't prepare the outfit in time. Wanting to win badly, she leans into the little sister persona, putting on her cutest expression and acting as sweet as possible. Nagi finds it oddly unsettling. The crowd, however, loves it, cheering wildly. Nagi can't help but wonder why Sachi never acts like this in real life. Then it's Hiro's turn. She walks out confidently in a stylized priestess outfit that's shorter and more fashionable than her usual shrine attire. Disappointed by Erika and Sachi's lackluster efforts, Hiro decides to win the competition herself. Her movements are graceful and well-rehearsed, and she delivers a dazzling, elegant performance that quickly stirs excitement in the crowd. Nagi and the rest of the audience are visibly impressed. Finally, all eyes turn to the stage for the last contestant, Ai. But instead of appearing in traditional cosplay, Ai steps out in a full idol outfit. The audience is confused. Rather than explain herself, Ai announces that she'll be cutting the cosplay competition short to move on to the next scheduled event. Hiro quickly checks the program and is surprised to find that the next segment is a live performance titled Arc Fault, performed by none other than Ai herself. Without missing a beat, Ai begins singing and dancing on stage as if it's second nature. The crowd is stunned. Phones come out as people begin recording the performance, gradually realizing that the famous online singer Ai is right in front of them, performing live. Backstage, Erika recognizes the song as a hit. Nagi also recalls it from their karaoke session with Hiro. As the performance ends, the entire crowd erupts into thunderous applause. Ai had quietly announced this surprise performance through her channel, and now seeing it live, the audience can hardly believe their luck. A few days have passed since Ai's explosive performance during the festival, and she has become the talk of the town due to her face reveal. Nagi starts feeling flustered at the thought that someone so popular has confessed her love to him. He snaps back to reality when Sachi calls for his attention, annoyed that he's reading articles about Ai again. Still, she admits she's happy that Nagi voted for her during the festival. During the contest, Ai won the hearts of the general public. Hiro received a vote from her mother, Erika got Shiyun's vote, and Nagi voted for Sachi, resulting in a four-way tie. Nagi explains that he voted for Sachi because things could have gotten awkward if no one voted for her. In the end, none of them claimed the amusement park tickets and decided to give them all to Sachi. Despite how things turned out, Sachi considers it her win, though Nagi questions that logic, pointing out it was a low-effort cosplay. Annoyed, Sachi hits him and demands he take her to the roller coaster. After the ride, Sachi wants to try the next-gen maze. Nagi warns her that she'll probably get lost and end up stuck inside. Taking it as an insult, Sachi charges in without him. Once inside, she's immediately captivated by the maze's reflective surfaces. As she searches for the exit, she ends up at a dead end. Suddenly, she sees what looks like her brother's reflection in a mirror, teasing her and pointing toward an exit. Confused, she eventually realizes it's just a reflection, and that the real Nagi is actually behind her. After a bit of teasing, Nagi offers to lead her out and extends his hand. To his surprise, Sachi slaps it away. She then accuses him of having already visited the maze with Hiro and grows increasingly upset that he never told her. Maggie fails to understand the point of the argument and tries to dismiss it, saying she's overreacting. Sachi then brings up the kiss they shared and asks if it was also his second kiss. Nagi admits it was his first, but downplays it as an accident before walking away and accusing Sachi of having kissed multiple guys before. Sachi, in a quiet voice, reveals that it was actually her first kiss, even if it was accidental. Summer break finally ends and Nagi returns to school. But for some reason, his classmates keep giving him strange looks. Two of them approach him from behind, trying to confirm a rumor, but Nagi has no idea what they're talking about until Shiyun suddenly bursts through the door, yelling for everyone to turn on the TV. On the screen, Nagi sees a breaking news segment featuring Ai. She confirms she's in love with someone named Yukon who attends M Academy. The image shown is of Nagi, with his eyes obscured, but his classmates quickly piece it together, assuming the U refers to his last name. They immediately start gossiping that he is secretly dating Ai. Nagi tries to deny it, but his protests fall on deaf ears. By the end of the school day, just as he's about to head home, he spots a group of reporters waiting by the front gate. Panicking, he reads a letter he found in his locker. It's from Hiro, asking to meet him at the counseling office. Nagi assumes Hiro wants to confront him about the rumor. Convinced she's furious and might even want to physically harm him, he steels himself to come clean and prove his innocence. When he arrives at the counseling room, he finds Hiro already there. She seems aware of the rumor, but to his surprise, she's neither angry nor upset. Instead, she calmly explains that with all the unwanted attention Nagi's been receiving, she thought the counseling room would be a quiet place where they could study undisturbed. As they begin their session, Hiro unexpectedly opens up. She admits to being a longtime fan of Ai's music, specifically Arc Fault, relating deeply to the lyrics. Hiro reveals that she was the one who sent a letter to Ai, inviting her to perform at the school festival. To her surprise and excitement, Ai actually agreed to come. Since Ai was known as a VTuber, Hiro expected a virtual performance, not a real-life appearance and public face reveal. Nagi confesses he had no idea Ai was that famous, let alone a VTuber with such a following. Then, out of nowhere, Hiro admits she feels like a background character in the unfolding romance between Nagi and Ai. Shocked, Nagi stands up and immediately denies it, but Hiro continues. Her emotions begin to surface and she confesses that she's actually angry. Suddenly, she grabs Nagi's tie and kisses him on the cheek. Just as quickly, she pulls away and walks toward the door. Before leaving, she tells him never to speak to her again. Afterward, Nagi checks the school gate again and sees that the reporters are still gathered there. Before he can panic, he spots Erika motioning for him to follow her. She leads him through the back of the school, where they manage to scale the wall and escape to the street. As Erika motions for them to head home, Erika casually asks if he wants to explain himself. Nagi nervously says the rumor about Ai is all a misunderstanding, but asks if they can talk about something else in a different location when Erika presses him for more details. They stop by the park where Nagi reveals that Hiro kissed him earlier and then told him never to speak to her again. When he sees Erika's uneasy expression, he starts to suspect that she may have seen the whole thing. Erika avoids his gaze, all but confirming Nagi's theory. She eventually walks over to the swings and sits down, admitting she doesn't know how to even bring it up. It's not every day that the two top students in their school are caught kissing in an empty room. If word got out, it would definitely become the talk of school. But as Nagi continues to vent, it becomes clear that what's bothering him more than the kiss is Hiro's sudden declaration that they should never speak again. Erika begins to look at him with visible irritation. Sensing her shift in mood, Nagi grows frustrated and tells her that she wouldn't understand what he feels. He launches himself higher and higher on the swing, shouting about how his life is a complete mess. But in his carelessness, he kicks too hard and ends up flying off the swing, crashing face first onto the ground. Erika launches herself after him, yelling that his life isn't just his own anymore. It's her life as well that he's messing up and he's being selfish. She kicks him on her landing, scolding him for forgetting that they're engaged. That means she's involved in everything that happens to him, whether it's good or bad. Nagi turns his back to her, still stewing in frustration. Erika sighs, then tells him that her dad will probably have something to say about the news. She offers him a hand, her voice softening as she tells him they need to call a family meeting with Sachi to figure out how to handle the situation once they return home. Once he's back on his feet, Erika comments that he should be feeling better now, having let everything out. Nagi watches her, once again struck by how dependable she can be. But just as the mood settles, a ping from his phone pulls his attention away. It's a message from Ai stating she wants him to come over to hear a new song she just finished. When Erika finds out, she encourages him to go. She reasons that if anyone knows how the rumor got out, it would most likely be Ai. They part ways, but on the way to Ai's, Nagi notices a crowd gathered in front of his family's diner. His parents, clearly seizing the opportunity, are telling customers that Ai's favorite food is their signature katsudon. The news team interviews them, and they invite everyone to try out the food in their diner. Eventually, Nagi arrives at Ai's home and uses his secret side entrance they found together back in elementary school. Once inside the house, he's greeted by Ai's grandmother, who happily tells him Ai's room is upstairs. Nagi knocks on Ai's door, but there's no answer, so he cautiously lets himself in. To his surprise, the walls of her room are plastered with giant posters of him, the same photo from the news with his eyes covered. Ai scrambles to hide them, but to make things even more awkward, she's wearing a t-shirt with the exact same image. Ai admits that she wanted to put up pictures of him, but the news photo was the only one she had. Then, with a shy smile, she asks if she can take a proper photo of him herself. Nagi denies her the pleasure and instead asks if she's handling the attention well. He promises that he'll find out who's responsible for the mess. Ai then calmly reveals that she's the one who announced their relationship, leaving Nagi stunned. As he struggles to process the information, Ai asks if he still remembers their time back in elementary school. She recalls how many people her age didn't talk to her because she had trouble expressing herself. Rather than socializing, she preferred to keep to herself and sing while walking to and from school. Nagi had first met her during one of those walks and had been the first person to compliment her voice. Even after moving to China, she still had trouble making friends. She continued singing, this time online as a VTuber. Eventually, people began tuning into her streams and listening to her songs, and before she knew it, she had built a following. She admits that all the songs she's written happen to be about Nagi. Now she wants him to be the first to hear her new music. She confesses she can no longer live without him because without him, she won't even be able to write songs. She also points out that the world is already celebrating their relationship. Ai then asks Nagi if he's ready to go against the world. This question makes him imagine how that scenario might play out. But before anything else can happen, Ai suddenly exclaims that she just came up with a new song and politely asks him to leave, making Nagi even more confused. Nagi returns home only to find Erika's mother, his biological mother, Ritsuko, waiting for him in the living room. Sachi and Erika sit nearby, looking tense. Nagi feels immediately uncomfortable. Ritsuko hasn't bothered to contact him since their first dinner together, and he doesn't feel any sense of maternal warmth from her. Sipping her coffee, Ritsuko tells Nagi that she's well aware of his latest controversy, prompting him to give a stiff apology. His formal tone makes Ritsuko laugh, saying it sounds like the kind of apology a celebrity would give. Once she settles down, she comments that Ai is spreading half-truths and warns that people like her can be exhausting to deal with. As Erika explains that Ritsuko is a producer, she then casually asks Sachi to fetch her a drink. As Sachi serves her, Ritsuko suddenly asks if Erika and Nagi have already become physically intimate. Erika quickly and loudly denies it, which makes Ritsuko sigh in disappointment. She lights up the idea of news breaking that Nagi and Erika are actually engaged and living together, believing it would stir a lot of media attention. Both Nagi and Erika are horrified, but Ritsuko already has a plan in motion. She makes a call instructing her men to take them away. Meanwhile, Nagi and Sachi's parents are celebrating this sudden boom in business, thanks to Nagi's link to Ai. Their diner has become unexpectedly popular. Sachi later arrives home and announces she'll be staying there for now. They presume it's because Nagi had fought with her, but Erika corrects them, stating that Nagi and Erika have disappeared. It turns out that Ritsuko has brought Erika and Nagi to a hotel, fighting on how they should keep away because they only have a single bed. Apparently, Ritsuko booked the room for them for an entire 2 weeks. Erika and Nagi suddenly hear a noise and notice a hand reaching out from beneath the mobile tray, sending them both into a panic. Erika immediately faints from fright before Ai reveals herself, crawling out from underneath. She takes a moment to observe Erika before dragging her toward the bed. Turning to Nagi, Ai confidently declares that she can help him escape, as she already has an exit. When she tries to pull him away, Nagi refuses to move and firmly rejects her offer. Confused, Ai demands an explanation. Nagi tells her that he no longer wants to run from his problems, explaining that Erika has taught him that escaping is never the solution, and it is something he plans on finishing with Erika. Ai pauses before smiling at him, acknowledging his growth. She compliments the bond he shares with Erika, saying their positive traits have started rubbing off on each other. However, she clarifies that what she sees is not romance, but rather a familial connection. She suddenly steps closer to Nagi, reminding him that she once chose to walk away from her own family just to be with him. She lists all the things she has done for their relationship, even ensuring their story made it into the news. Nagi nervously admits that seeing and hearing it broadcast was exciting, only for Ai to point at him and declare that romantic love is supposed to feel exciting. Out of nowhere, Ai clutches her skirt and provocatively asks Nagi which panties he would rather see. Though he tries to avert his gaze, he eventually finds himself seriously considering the question, his eyes shifting between Ai's and Erika's thighs, thinking which one he wants to see more. He is just about to answer when Erika sits up, unimpressed, and flatly asks why her panties are being treated as an option. Ai immediately calls her out, revealing that Erika had been awake for some time and is aware of the situation. She then states that she has been waiting for the chance to speak to Erika directly. The atmosphere thickens as tension sparks between the two girls. Sensing the hostility, Nagi tries to excuse himself from the confrontation, but both Ai and Erika order him to stay put. Ai then demands that Erika break off her engagement with Nagi. Erika protests, explaining that it's a decision made by their families and not something she can easily undo even if she wants to escape. Ai challenges her, pointing out that Erika is far too complacent with her parents' wishes. Erika denies this, clarifying that the reason she agreed to live with Nagi and test their relationship was so that she could gradually become independent from her family. Unmoved, Ai presses further, asking what kind of relationship Erika would have with Nagi if their engagement didn't exist or was suddenly called off. Then realization hits Erika. Without the engagement, she and Nagi would essentially be nothing to each other since they lead very different lives and have almost nothing in common. Ai smiles, satisfied that Erika has finally acknowledged her point that their engagement does not represent a true relationship. Nagi, however, feels a pang of guilt since Erika has supported him many times in the past. Ai then walks over to the portable tray, claiming she and Nagi's relationship is real. She then pulls out a large board she had prepared. On it is a detailed 100-year life plan with Nagi, outlining her vision of their future romantic relationship. She enthusiastically explains her plan, their marriage, their children, and other aspects of their future life together. She even adds that she intends to work after marriage so that Nagi can enjoy life as a stay-at-home dad. Nagi doesn't seem opposed to Ai's idea, but Erika is clearly bothered and mocks the part where Ai wrote that she plans on ascending to heaven with Nagi while holding hands. Ai is offended by the remark, prompting Nagi to step in and calm them down. He tries not to show it, but he is touched that Ai thought of a future with him so seriously. The two girls sit across the table and begin discussing their different perspectives on marriage. Ai claims that Erika is immature since she isn't even thinking about marriage, but Erika counters that marriage does not guarantee happiness, marking Ai as the immature one. Ai looks at her in shock, so Erika explains her reasoning by bringing up her parents, who are always too busy to spend time with each other. Their distant relationship put a strain on the family, causing her older brother to disappear and left her feeling alone. Ai listens with understanding, revealing that her own family had also separated. Erika reminds her that not all marriages are happy, warning her not to put blind hope into it. Meanwhile, Nagy quietly reflects that he's fortunate his family is still close. Ai suddenly stands and accuses Erika of believing that a marriage arranged by her parents will somehow make her happy. As the tension builds, Nagy tries to insert his thoughts by appearing confident, but both girls immediately shout at him to stay out of their argument. Their conflict looks ready to erupt into a fight as they grip each other's hands tightly, and Nagy panics that it may turn violent. To his surprise, instead of fighting, they suddenly soften and begin complimenting one another, pointing out how good of friends they could be based on their insights. Nagy is baffled, but Ai and Erika move past their disagreement effortlessly. Erika admits that she was initially angry, but realizes many of Ai's points made sense. Ai agrees and says it feels refreshing to talk so openly with someone who is equally direct with her. They toasted her newfound friendship, even remarking that it feels as though they had known each other in a past life. Though confused, Nagy is relieved that the two girls seem to be getting along. Soon after, Erika and Ai begin comparing their panties, fascinated by each other's designs and asking where the other bought them, while Nagy finally takes a bath. When Nagy returns, Erika suddenly announces that she will be leaving the hotel with Ai. Surprised, Nagy asks what made her change her mind. Erika explains that she wants to prove her independence from her mother by escaping. Ai reassures Nagy not to worry, revealing that she has already prepared a safe hideout for him where he can stay for at least a week. She convinces him further by promising that the place has a full set of new textbooks waiting for him. Ai leads them to the emergency exit, confidently guiding Erika out as if there was nothing to worry about. Nagy, however, hesitates. He recalls how tight the hotel security had been yesterday, and the ease of their escape feels suspicious. Before he can question it further, he hears Ritsuko's voice from behind. She assures him that she doesn't intend to stop them from leaving, but warns him not to underestimate her. Ritsuko admits she had wanted to keep them in the hotel for their own safety, but seeing how they've handled themselves, she's decided to let them go. She adds that the time spent in the hotel has given her a better understanding of Nagy's bond with Erika. As she prepares to leave, Ritsuko casually tells Nagy that he has an older biological brother who may be closer than he realizes. She asks him to keep this conversation a secret from Erika. Stunned, Nagy calls out to her for answers, but she only whispers one last request that she wants him to save Sosuke. Nagy tries to press her for more, but Erika's impatient voice rings out from the door, urging him to hurry. Still bewildered, he barely reacts until Erika grabs his hand and pulls him along, forcing him to follow her. Finally, the three of them settle into a car headed toward Ai's hideout. Erika nudges Nagy to thank Ai, but Ai insists there's no need. The entire mess was her fault to begin with, and she promises to be more mindful of the consequences of her actions in the future. When the car stops, Ai tells Nagy to get out. He's surprised, but before he can argue, he's practically kicked out of the vehicle. Ai reassures him that someone will come to pick him up. Erika looks just as confused, but Ai explains that she can't shelter both of them in the same place as it's safer to separate. Neither Nagy nor Erika protests. As the car pulls away, Erika rolls down her window and promises they'll see each other in a week. When Nagy shouts confirmation, she smiles warmly at him. Looking around, Nagy tries to get his bearings. He stumbles after seeing a frightening-looking statue, and from his lowered vantage point realizes he's standing in front of Hiro's family shrine. Just then, Hiro herself steps outside. Flustered, Nagy nervously asks if he'll be staying at her house. Hiro doesn't respond, instead turning around and walking back in silence. Confused, Nagy hesitates until she suddenly glances over her shoulder and gestures for him to follow. Inside, Hiro serves him tea, which he gratefully accepts. Without a word, she then points down the hall. Curious, Nagy follows her direction and finds himself in a warm, inviting bath. As he sinks into the water, relief washes over him as he's glad to be staying at Hiro's place. Still, the silence gnaws at him. Hiro has yet to speak a single word since his arrival, and Nagy begins to wonder uneasily if she's still angry with him. Nagy notices a large pile of salt near the bath and begins massaging it onto his body. Afterward, he steps out and sees a white kimono. Thinking it might be pajamas, he puts it on, pleased that the shrine has a fancy choice for sleepwear. Looking for Hiro, he finds her sweeping outside. He approaches and asks if he can help with anything. Hiro silently points toward a plot of land with a shovel stuck into the ground. Without hesitation, Nagy begins digging a large hole. Once he realizes how deep it has gotten, he wonders what it will be used for. A sudden chill runs down his spine as suspicion takes over. He recalls how strange it is for him to be staying at Hiro's place when they aren't friends anymore. He starts to wonder if the salt in the bathroom was meant to purify him, and if the white kimono was something worn by the dead. Gazing back at the hole, the thought creeps in that it might be meant to bury him. When he walks back into the house, he spots Hiro sharpening a butcher's knife while smiling at him. Panic sets in and Nagi bolts, convinced Hiro might kill him with it. He stumbles to the ground and begs for his life, only to stop when Hiro bursts out laughing. The two sit down and Hiro reassures him that all his assumptions are wrong. The salt in the bathroom is simply meant to ward off evil, and the white kimono was the only outfit they had available for male guests. Relieved, Nagi decides to ask why she hadn't spoken a single word to him since he arrived. Hiro pauses dramatically before admitting that she wanted to mess with him. Seeing his confusion after so long had sparked her playful side. She then apologizes for the misunderstanding from before, explaining that Ai had already cleared everything up with her. Hiro shares that Ai had asked for her help, and that made her realize she didn't want to say a background character any longer. Standing tall, Hiro declares that she will no longer be dependent on Nagi because she is the protagonist of her own story. Nagi smiles at her words, relieved that things have cleared between them. Hiro then jokingly asks him to be her background character, and Nagi readily agrees, secretly admitting to himself that her confidence is attractive. Meanwhile, Erika is at the Umino household, asking her biological parents if she can stay with them for the time being. Nami and Yohei happily welcome her, though Sachi looks visibly upset with the arrangement. The next morning, Nagi is woken up by Hiro, who suddenly asks for his help. Without hesitation, she tells him to marry her. Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss new episodes every week.